Hey planty peeps, welcome to Niche's Plants. My name is Kanisha, also known as Niche, and today is Pon pros and cons with a few before and after, so let's get to it. So pro and con number one, yes, you heard me correctly, that is slow release fertilizer, which is the yellow balls that you see. Now slow release fertilizer does last up to 6 months because it releases nutrients into the substrate so slowly. Now because of this, it does actually need contact with water to basically be activated, and the water helps to moisten the fertilizer, which then allows the outer coating to break down to release those nutrients. Now this will really start about 6 to 8 weeks once it's been planted into the substrate. So because of that, and because they do release nutrients so slowly, it may mean that your plants don't always get the nutrients that they need at an exact point of time. So because of that, I will be fertilizing my plants as well with my usual fertilizer that I use, but just to make sure they've got the nutrients that they need, especially during spring and summer when they're growing the most. Otherwise, it's a great thing to have, because if you don't like to fertilize that much or you don't know the concentration, they're there to assist and allow there to be some sort of foundation, but the additional fertilizer will top up and make sure the plants have all that they need. So here is my Anthurium Ace of Spades. You know that new leaf I was talking about? Here it is. And you can see it's also giving me some new roots. We've got another 3 actually coming through, and it just makes me so happy. And it's got 2 growth points on it. So yeah, success. Pro Pon number 2, and that is it's easy to clean up if you spill it. Because they're little stone pieces, you can literally just scoop them up, brush them up, pick them up, and it's no problem. Think about those times when you have spilt soil, especially when you have spilt wet or damp soil in carpet. Oh my goodness, it's bad alone if you've got it on laminate or vinyl flooring, but with Pon, you just sweep it up, pick it up and scoop it back into the pot, and you are good to go. So mess free, love it. So pro number 3 is that Pon is compact enough to hold a plant in place, whether big, medium or small, and it's still airy enough, or it moves enough to allow the roots to grow throughout the substrate. Now you can see the crystalline root is kind of really just doing what it wants, but it looks really healthy, and you'll see others within the pot that they are growing out the top, above, beyond, and they're literally going where they feel. And that's another great thing about Pon. Like I said, it's not too compact, it holds the plant in place, but the roots are allowed to move freely throughout the substrate. As you can see, we've got a lot of new root growth there. They're looking really good, they look really happy, and I'm definitely going to have to repot this into a larger pot soon, but we'll sort that out at a later date. Now, pro number 4. Pro number 4 is that Lechuza seems to hold up to what they said about Pon, in the sense that it has the 55% water content and 45% airflow, and this ensures that the plant's root isn't waterlogged, that the plant is getting the water that it needs, it's getting the airflow that it needs, so that it can just grow, thrive, flourish and move as it pleases. And this crystallinum and its roots seem to be showing me that, so I'm loving that. Okay, con number 2 is the amount of debris that's in the packet of Pon. Now, hence why you need to flush it through when you first pot up your plants. As you'll see in this image, there's a lot of dirt that does flush through. Now, I realized the second week of watering, I had to do the same thing, because there was still a little bit of debris that was kind of caught in the base. So just be aware of that. You need to flush it through a few times. Now, it's not going to be detrimental to your plants as long as you get the majority out, because the Pon then is clean, but it's just to be aware of that. Now this is my beautiful Anthurium magnificum. Now you'd remember when we first potted it up, it literally just had 2 leaves, and I was telling you it'd taken ages just to give me the second leaf, which was like 8 months. Now, obviously after the potting, I thought a new leaf was coming through. It had, and we've even got another leaf. Like, I now have 2 leaves in the space of 6 weeks. 2 new leaves. That's amazing to me, considering this plant was such a slow grow in my care. But putting it upon, it shows with the right amount of moisture or constant water, as well as airflow. I will admit the last few weeks we've had really good temperature in London, so it's had consistent high humidity and temperatures, but all working together, it's given me 2 great new leaves that are a good size, and I just hope and pray it continues to grow like this, because I'm actually really happy. I couldn't ask for anything more. Pro number 5 is that Pon helps to prevent and minimize pests within the house and on your plant's house. So now Pon is a substrate that shouldn't be continually moist, however it's compact enough where so that pests like spider mites, aphids and gnats don't really want to lay their eggs in the substrate because it's not moist enough and there's not really much for them to feed off. However, if the substrate is continually moist for long periods of time, you could potentially create an environment for pests. Now, if we look at the Lechuza website, they do have on the frequently asked questions, point number 11, enemies of plants. It talks about how to fight parasites in Lechuza, and again, it does mention that even if planted completely in an almost sterile substrate, your plants could be attacked, especially if your indoor air is dry and if you do have the substrate wet for a continued amount of time. Now, if we look at where it mentions fungus, gnats and harmful flies, it talks about the planting substrate Pon can also serve as distribution center if it is kept permanently too wet. So it's just being conscious that Pon does somewhat need a dry period, and even if the first few inches of Pon is dry, remember the base is pretty much going to be moist and it will wick that moisture up to your plants and the roots will go down towards it as it grows and develops. So it's just to be aware of that, but as it stands, I haven't really seen any gnats within my greenhouse cabinet. I've seen one or two, which you'll see on this Peninga. It has picked it up, which is a carnivorous plant, because I do have other plants within the cabinet that some are in soil. So there's been one or two flying around, but those plants deal with it. So con number 3, I would have to say, is the price. Now, depending on the size of the bag that you get, obviously the more you get, the cheaper it should be. However, in comparison to buying a block of coco coir, it is a lot more expensive. Now, to put it simply, if I was to spend the same amount on coco coir as I do on Pon, I could pot up more plants with the coco coir than I do with Pon. Now, looking at the jungle pots, I could probably pot up an extra 3, maybe 3.5 pots. But again, the more Pon you buy, the cheaper it should get once you've done your calculation. So I definitely say there are more pros than cons to Pon. I've actually ordered some orchid Pon, which I'll transfer a few of my other Anthuriums into, including my Warocrinum. I know there has been a request to see that, so if the interest is still there, I will definitely do that. I would say my plants have done well in Pon and are still developing, so I'm looking forward to tracking their growth, which obviously I'll also show on my IG. I hope this Pon pros and con video has been helpful, as well as being able to reflect with me on the growth of these plants. As always, please do subscribe, like the video and share if you think it can be helpful to others. For now, dare to dream, live to grow, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.